going on, everybody? Welcome back. We are here today to go down the list of the most expensive incoming transfers in MLS history. There are rising talents, there are in-prime stars, a little bit older players, there are a lot of players who worked out very well, but an uncomfortable amount of players who we have to debate if it was one worth it or two, if they were even any good in MLS. So when you go on down the list, it's fun to go down memory lane. There are several players that are still in MLS that are on this list. There are even a couple from this year. I believe with Austin FC signing Usman Bogert, that's 7 teams in 2024 that broke their own club transfer record. And maybe one day we'll go through club by club. But for today, we're just going to do the top 10 most expensive incoming transfers in MLS history. A little quick runner show just to say that some of these transfers have add-ons that either haven't been hit or I'm doubtful whether they did hit. This is the best that I can do in terms of my own insight, reporting, inside knowledge, and just knowing which sources to trust and which not to trust. So not all of these numbers, if in fact most of these numbers aren't publicly available. This is all what either I've reported, actually it's mostly all what I've reported. If not, then it's the people that I know to trust and know what's real and what's not, and what I've talked to sources to talk about. So anyway, here we are. Before we get started, we have a little bit of honorable mentions. A couple of these, particularly the older ones, obviously I wasn't around for. I was still in college. I wasn't in the Scoops game. Actually, one of these I was still in high school. First off, Evander Portland Timbers, that deal was under 10 million, and to be in the top 10, you have to be over 10 million. That's just how it works. We'll see when you get to number 10. Evander's been awesome for Portland. He came from FC Michelin. This guy was leading the Europa League in assists. Just a really great transfer by the Portland Timbers to get him in, and a profile of a player that just straight up never came to MLS before this. And number 10 is a trailblazer for that kind of profile. So Evander, we need more players in their prime like that who, maybe will go back to Europe, maybe will go to a big Brazilian club one day. But for right now, Evander is looking worth every single penny and then some. Michael Bradley, Toronto FC, way back when. That fee was around 10 million or maybe just a little bit less. From Roma, man, club legend for Toronto FC. One of the best U.S. national team players of all time. Like Michael Bradley, people don't remember Toronto FC was an absolute joke before he got there. It's just a really great transfer, worth every penny again, and really ambitious from that ownership group when it wasn't super popular for a player of his age, his prime. Obviously, the national team fans didn't necessarily love that he left Europe for Toronto, but hey, man, it is what it is. FC Dallas striker Peter Musa, they signed him for a club record fee of $9.7 million up front with another $3.3 million in add-ons. I'd be really surprised if add-ons have hit yet because he's only been here for a few months, but he's somebody who could be vaulted into the top 10 depending on what those add-ons were and if they hit. I was shocked that FC Dallas had this money, so well done for them to putting back the money that they've got in for transfer fees in the past in terms of outgoing players. And here he is. He's honorable mentions. Again, he's not yet in the top 10, but with those add-ons, he might be. And then lastly, Jermaine Defoe. Kids, if you haven't been around MLS, yes, Jermaine Defoe played for Toronto FC for a very little while. Drake was apparently used in the recruitment of Jermaine Defoe back then. He did not last very long in this league before he said, I want to get the hell out of here. And then Toronto did a straight swap to sign Josie Altidore. It was Defoe, so I could put Altidore's face in this little honorable mentions thing because Jermaine Defoe's value didn't really go down because he wasn't around here long enough for it to change too much. And he was signed for about $10 million. And then Josie Altidore just swapped with him. So Toronto FC, you're going to see them quite a few times on this list. And here they are in the honorable mentions. And yeah, Jermaine Defoe, what a time to be alive in MLS. They had Julio Cesar, the legendary Brazilian goalkeeper. Toronto had him for 6 months. Just going down the list of some of those transfers is wild. And it's a lot of fun. Yes, you might have different ideas of fun, but if you're watching this video and listening to this, I think that you might be a sicko just like me. Okay, anyway, into the top 10. All right, let's go into the top 10 here. Number 10, Cucho Hernandez. He was signed by the Columbus Crew from Watford in 2022. The fee was a little bit north of $10 million, as I reported back when the deal happened, and oh my God, what a huge success. We're going to go down the list and be debating over, this guy was pretty good, was he, whatever, right? There are no questions about Cucho Hernandez. He's got 39 goals and 13 assists in 67 games. If you open it up to secondary assists, which is the official stat tracking of MLS, it's probably more, but I just got my stats from, primary stuff. Anyway, from the moment he debuted, it was very clear he was different gravy. Just his first games under Caleb Porter, him and Lucas El Rayon were two-man attack, and they had all the creativity. You didn't need to come up with a tactical scheme for them. That's how good these two players were it didn't matter how you put them together, they were going to create goals. And like, I still can't believe they missed the playoffs in that season. I don't wonder why Caleb Porter got fired. Anyway, Wilfred Nancy comes in. Columbus Crew win 2023 MLS Cup. Cucho Hernandez was the best player, MLS Cup MVP. He led them to a CONCACAF Champions Cup final against Pachuca, and I phrase it like that because I'm recording this Saturday morning. I don't know if they won or not, so if you're listening to this now, you'll know. I hope that they did, because that would be a fun story. Anyway, yeah, he's incredible, right? Like, he was very clearly incredible when he first got here, and then under Nancy, the first half of that first season, he was really good. Like, and he had like a whole nother level to go because Nancy said, you know what, I'm going to build this thing around him. And Lucas El Rayon goes to Saudi. And Cucho Hernandez somehow becomes an incredible number 10 and an incredible number 9. I don't know how he can be in all of those positions at once. He can drop deep, and then he's somehow at the back post for a tap-in. Usually players who are like a 9.5 like him that can be super creative forwards, they don't get the back post tap-ins all the time. Like, I don't understand it, and he's just a phenomenal player in the perfect system under the perfect head coach. Cucho Hernandez, I cannot say enough good things about him. The season before he joined Columbus Crew with Watford, they got relegated, but he had 5 goals and 2 assists in like 1,200 minutes. That's not bad for a player on a team that got relegated. They weren't exactly dominating possession or scoring a ton of goals. It's a cool story, too, because in the history of players like him and getting relegated from the Premier League, these players, like, he's good enough to have gone to La Liga. Hell, he played in La Liga before the Premier League. Good enough to go to Italy or Germany if he wanted to. He probably would fit better in Italy or Spain, particularly Spain, given his history there. Or they just stay with Watford in the Championship and try to go back up. These players don't come to MLS in their prime with everything else that they had. Tim Bezbachenko talked about it, that Cucho had an open mind when they met. Like, look, he wasn't pretending that, like, this was going to be like, oh my God, Real Madrid are after me. That was a Columbus Crew. Like, it's different. It's just the food chain of global soccer. And, like, again, to his credit, he was open-minded. They won him over with the project. Obviously, money didn't hurt, right? And guess what? It's been awesome for everybody. Cucho's gotten better as a player. He's gotten back into the periphery of the Colombian national team, which didn't really happen before he left. It's like he won a trophy. He's had an excellent life, excellent finances for this, and he's best positioned to go back to Europe at some point in the future. He had 100 combined appearances between the Premier League and La Liga before he comes, and he's going to be back there one day. Whenever he does go, and I can tell you teams are looking at him, man. Like, I can't imagine that Columbus would acquiesce to a sale this summer, but who knows what the fee's going to be. So, like, he's going to go one day, and when he does, he's going to be in that. I'll have to make a new video for the top 10 most expensive outbound transfers. I'll have to have an update because Cucho will be in that. Number 9, Gabriel Peck, $10.5 million. That was this winter, Vasco da Gama to the LA Galaxy. When this deal was happening, I had one scout reach out to me and immediately tell me, dude, Galaxy overpaid. Like, he's not that good. Like, they're going to be disappointed, blah, 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 whatever, right? Like, let's say within a couple months, he looks pretty goddamn good to me. I don't know about you guys, but 4 goals and 4 assists in 1,100 minutes. That's pretty good in a first half season with the LA Galaxy. And the team has been flying. He's fit really, really well around Ricky Puig, opposite Joseph Panso or Diego Fagundes. This is just like, it's pretty clearly like, again, maybe they could have gotten it for $8.5 million, but who cares if you get the right player? And this is a player who's going to continue to grow in stature and value and reputation. But most importantly, on the field, he is contributing to winning soccer. He had 8 goals and 4 assists in about 1,200 minutes in his last season in the Brazilian top flight with Vasco. Vasco is the club that he kind of broke through at. He got his professional debut. He made 178 career appearances for the team. And again, like, this is a good signing. Like, this is somebody who probably could have went to mid-table top 5 league or somewhere in Europe, right? Like, it's awesome that MLS more and more have gotten up the food chain in not just, you know, the 10th best player from Argentina or Brazilian league to come to be exported. It's like climbing up. Like, sure, this isn't some of the Palmeiras kids that have graduated that go directly to Madrid, and it'll never really be like that for MLS, but players like this, it is very, very important. Like Cucho, Gabriel Peck, I think, is really like the perfect age for recruitment at this stage, because he's old enough that he's not a huge roll of the dice at $10.5 million on like a teenager who's going to be super inconsistent. And again, like, he's a young player. There's going to be some inconsistencies, some up and downs. But again, like I said, he had 178 career appearances before he got to the Galaxy. So he's young enough that he's still improving, but old enough that he's ready to like contribute to winning soccer. And then, like Cucho, like, if things go super well, he's either going to be here for a decade or they're going to sell him on for a profit in a few years. Like, These are the age profiles that are working really, really well. Getting a guy at like 21 to 23 rather than 18 to 21. And it can still work for 18 to 21. Do not get me wrong. But Cucho Hernandez doesn't lead the Columbus Crew to MLS Cup if he was 19 years old. It's just a different stage of his career. So that's what I like about this signing as well. Number 8, Alejandro Pozuelo. $11 million from KRC Genk to Toronto FC in 2019. Look, the streets won't forget how insanely good Alejandro Pozuelo was at Toronto FC. I believe it was his debut against NYCFC. He was insane. I remember I was watching the game on my phone at a bar, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. Pozuelo won MLS MVP in 2020. In his debut 2019 MLS season, he had 12 goals and 7 assists, best 11 in both 2019 and 2020. And that Toronto team around him, it had so much potential. They did get to MLS Cup final in 19, but they lost to Seattle. The wheels fell off in 2021 and 22. He was a cap casualty because Bob Bradley didn't like him, and they had to make room for Federico Bernardeschi. That sentence would have been a whole lot funnier 4 months ago before Bernardeschi went supernova again this year. But anyway, Pozuelo was a casualty there. Like, he just didn't really fit under Bob Bradley, and I think he got super unlucky between that and then he went to Inter Miami for half a season. He absolutely shredded at Inter Miami. He wanted to stay. They wanted to keep him, but they couldn't use a DP spot on him, and they had to be careful with all the finances. And then Rodolfo Pizarro, hilariously, is part of the reason why he couldn't stay at Miami, because he refused to leave on loan again that season, and they definitely didn't have room for Pizarro, and they were working on the Lionel Messi deal, so that's how that went. But Alejandro Pozuelo, man, like on his day, one of the most fun players to watch in the last decade around MLS. Before he came to Toronto, he had 25 goals and 60 assists with Genk. He was just a star in the Europa League as well, as well as obviously his league form. He was so good. His highlight reel is up there with anybody on this list, really. Like, the top moments that Alejandro Pozuelo had were incredible. A couple of those chips, like poor Sean Johnson, like against, I feel like he had like 4 different golazos against Sean Johnson at NYCFC. But man, Pozuelo was straight up one of the most fun players that I've watched again in the last 5 or 10 years in MLS. Sad how it ended. He's currently in Abu Dhabi. He spent a few months in Turkey because he was waiting, hoping that Miami would kind of find a way to bring him in, and they couldn't. And we haven't heard from him since. Number 7, Luis Araujo. Atlanta United bought him for around $11.8 million in 2021. I thought it was up to $12 million, and it still might be, but I've struggled to find reporting that kind of also suggests that. So whether he's somewhere in the top 10, it's just whether it's between 7 and 9. Anyway, what's not up for debate is very bad, very, very bad. I thought he was going to be great. Luis Araujo was a regular starter for Lille as they shockingly won Ligue 1 that season. And I was like, in prime winger, somebody who's individualistic, who can create for himself and create for others, super athletic as well. All of these things lead you to believe that he's going to be an awesome MLS player. And then kind of right after the deal, I had an agent tell me, he's like, dude, Lille would have been happy if they sold him for $6 or $7 million. They could not believe they got this offer from Atlanta to this. Like, they would have driven him to the airport if they had to. They would have helped him pack his bags. I was like, that seems like a bad sign, but like, maybe this is just a European agent who's used to like top end Champions League or whatever, right? Like, there's a lot of room for like Leo to be happy to get a good deal from him, and then him still be a really good player in MLS. I was like, it's like naively like looking at it like glass half full, and then oh my God, he was not it. He's had 13 goals and 11 assists in 63 appearances with Atlanta. Those numbers aren't awful, but they do not tell the story of how frustrating he was. Like, his expected goals and stuff like that, like his underlying numbers, like he should have been so much better. He lost the ball in awful areas. He was the king of taking 3 too many touches all the time, and then he would eventually make the pass, but it would be 3 seconds too late. So it just wasn't a good fit. These things happen. Again, I was wrong. That happens plenty. Don't worry. Luis Araujo, he left MLS for Flamengo last summer. Dude, somehow Atlanta got about $10 million for him. Well done deal-making Carlos Bocanegra in that front office for getting $10 million from him. And guess what? He hasn't been very good for Flamengo either. 5 goals, 4 assists in 53 appearances. So, like, look, this still goes down as a bad signing because, first and foremost, he didn't work out for the team. But it could have been worse, man. Again, think of Pozuelo. Pozuelo was really good, and Toronto didn't get a dime for him on the way out. They had to, eat the loss on the transfer fee and the salary and all that stuff, trade him to Miami. So, could have been worse that they got some money back, but, When they were drawing up this transfer, they weren't going to be like, hey, man, I hope one day we almost make our money back on this transfer, right? Like, they were expecting a lot more goals and assists than he provided. But, look, man, in-prime winger, Brazilian, for a team that just won a league title in a top 5 league, who played a lot that season, didn't have like a ton of goals or assists, but he played a ton. Look, dude, I'm glad to be wrong on that day of today. I would keep taking that swing on profiles like that. It's not always going to work out, but I think that you're going to have more hits than misses. Unfortunately, Luis Araujo did not hit. Anyway, Rodolfo Pizarro, we already talked about him a little bit. And Rodolfo Pizarro, if you're watching, you're not going to love this section. Number 6, $12 million from Monterrey to Inter Miami in 2020. Look, if Araujo was bad, dear God, what's the word for Rodolfo Pizarro's time in MLS? Ugh. This dude's transfer history is out of control, by the way. Between 2017 and 2020, he was transferred 3 times for a total of like $45 million. I just don't understand how that happened. It was Pachuca to Chivas, Chivas to Monterrey, Monterrey to Miami. He was pretty underwhelming for like none worse than when he was in Miami. 7 goals and 10 assists, all like totals for Miami. He was their marquee signing. This was a club that would eventually land Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Busquets, Alba, all these other players. And they spoke about over and over again how they were going to make this big splash coming in MLS from day one. We're going to spend money, have stars, all that stuff. Pizarro was the face of this club. And now Messi's the face of this club, right? Like, dude, he's an attacking midfielder who doesn't score or assist. Like, his best time in Miami was as like a box-to-box connector. You don't pay $12 million for a connector in MLS, man. It just is what it is. Like, I don't know. In case you were curious, he's currently at AEK Athens with former head coach Matias Almeida, who he had a lot of success with at Chivas. He has 0 goals and 1 assist in 22 appearances in Greece. So, in case you were curious. Anyway, back to his time in Miami. Like, in his defense, to not be totally mean, wasn't a great system, like, wasn't a great atmosphere for him to be super successful. Gonzalo Higuain, definitely heard some stories that they didn't totally get along, and Higuain wasn't the nicest to him. I'll put it that way. And again, he kind of bounced around with loans and with a loan, to Monterrey. Came back. Higuain was retired. He's like, now is my time. I'm not going to leave. So that's again part of why Pozuelo couldn't come back to Miami. But again, just abject failure. Zero success on the field. $0 coming out of this. But hey, worked out in the end. They got Lionel Messi. Number 5, Brenner. Brenner was bought by FC Cincinnati in 2021 for $12 million from Sao Paulo. Since he made a big deal of this signing when it happened, because guess what? It was a really big deal. $12 million up front plus a little bit in add-ons that did not hit. The $1 million in add-ons was if Cincy made the playoffs that season. They did not. But anyway, a $12 million signing for one of the brightest talents coming through Brazil. That's a big deal for an MLS club. Like, I had an intermediary tell me that they probably overpaid, but guess what? MLS clubs have to overpay a little bit for a talent like this, and particularly on the first ones, right? Like, that's how, new paths get created. Look, there were some low lows for Brenner at Cincy, but there were some really high highs. All in all, I feel really, really strongly this was an absolute success. Things were no good in that first year in 2021, but guess what? No one was really good for that Cincy team in 2021. Lucho Acosta, he's currently the best non-Messi player in MLS. He wasn't very good that season either, because Cincy was an absolute black hole of sadness and failure. And then guess what? 2022 happens. Chris Albright takes over GM, Pat Noonan head coach. They change the system. They tweak a couple other things around the playing style, and he was incredible. 18 goals and 6 assists in 2,200 minutes since he won the Shield, and Brenner was positively integral to that. Streets won't forget that one season of Lucho, Brandon Vasquez, and Brenner was incredible. They were must-watch. They were so much fun. It wasn't just the goals. Like, Brenner was, like any talented forward, he's going to be a little bit selfish, right? But, like, the way that they combined the 3 of them, because Brandon Vasquez is also super unselfish, it was beautiful. And, like, it worked out really, really well. And again, like, they won a trophy. He played phenomenal. That's a success no matter what else happens after that. Look, the exit was messy. He in the front office didn't see eye to eye. But that really shouldn't take away from all of those moments on the field. And guess what? They got $10 million from Udinese, so they should be happy. If Brenner left a year prior, which I want to be clear, he wanted to leave before the 2022 season, because why wouldn't you? It was an awful season. He was ready to go back to Brazil. There's a bunch of Brazilian clubs lined up, say, hey, free loan and $6 million purchase option. And since you were like, dude, absolutely not. Like, why would we do that? Like, it can't get any worse. Like, this deal will be here in 5 months if we want it. And they were insistent that we think he's going to be much, much better under our new system, under a new coach, all that stuff. And guess what? They were right. So, look, all in all, very, very good. Since he got to Udinese, though, he's 0 goals in 185 minutes, mostly through to injury, but also due to coaching decisions. But Udinese did avoid relegation, so, things are looking up. Will he stay this summer? I'm not sure. We shall see. Maybe if an MLS club needs a striker, he's a known commodity in this league, and I do know that would be an option. So we'll see what happens if he stays at Udinese, stays in Europe, comes to MLS, South America, whatever, right? Like, Brenner watch again this summer. Number 4, Hugo Kuipers. Chicago Fire this winter spent $12 million plus another $2 million in add-ons to sign him from KAA Ghent. I think we'll know if he's really good or if he's just fine if the Fire get better chance creation. Unfortunately, there's no guarantee that happens because they've been such a dumpster fire for years and collecting talent that doesn't necessarily make sense for each other. I think it's very clear that Hugo Kuipers is a very good player. Let me say that. That last sentence sounded like I was being critical or doubting him as a player. I think it's very clear he's a very good player. But his profile is more poacher than Cucho, right? Like, he's more of just finishes off plays rather than really creating stuff. And again, like, that's great. That's super valuable. Like, what would our view of this player be if he played for NYCFC, Portland, Cincy? Teams that create chances and have more structure around him. So, again, like, jury's still out on him. I think it's pretty clear that he's a good player. It's just whether he's a success or air quote failure, I don't think it's going to be on him. I think it's going to be whether or not Chicago puts the right team around him. In his last full season before MLS, he had 27 goals and 8 assists in like 3,300 minutes. The price tag when he signed was questioned just because people hadn't really heard of him, right? Like, 12 million, that's a lot of money. But, like, brother, 27 goals, 8 assists in 3,300 minutes for a then 26-year-old. He just turned 27. In prime center forward, you ain't getting it for much cheaper than that. So, the price tag was fair. And again, like, if they get an awesome chance creator around him, I think he's going to score a ton of goals in this league. So, again, we'll see. I do hope he comes good. I really do. Chicago fans deserve to have some fun. If, like, whether or not it's winning trophies, they deserve to have fun. And Hugo Kuipers could be the talisman in a high-scoring team, but he just requires more chance creation and better foundation around him than the Chicago Fire currently have. Let's see what happens this summer. Into the top 3. This is the section that I would like to call Argentines coming to Atlanta. Number 3, Ezequiel Barco. He was signed in 2018 from Independiente for $15 million for a then league record fee. Didn't quite work out. He had 19 goals and 18 assists in 107 appearances for Atlanta. They did win 2018 MLS Cup his first half season. But it took him a little while to settle, to say the least. He was not a key part of that team in any way whatsoever. He played a total of 15 minutes in the playoffs. So he won a trophy, but it's not like, oh, look, they won MLS Cup because of him. They didn't. That doesn't take away anything from him, but I'm just saying in this argument of whether or not he was worth it or right, that doesn't really apply. They did win 2019 MLS Cup. He was more of a regular, but that was Joseph's team, man. Joseph single-handedly dragged an average team to win trophies and get farther in the playoffs. Like, he was awesome. So, yeah. That was more Joseph than Barco, but hey, at least Barco was a key player on that team. Look, he was just straight up always underwhelming for the price tag, and that's not necessarily his fault, right? Like, he was viewed as, like, literally the best young player coming out of Argentina, or at least, like, consensus top 3. He was supposed to be Almiron. Just obviously wasn't, right? Again, super talented player. It's just his decision-making kind of always let him down. Like, he wasn't a complete player because of that. He's super talented. Look, he's fun to watch on his day. And I'll kind of always have a soft spot for him with all that talent and everything that came with him. And again, that like, it wasn't easy for him when he first got here. And he was okay for Atlanta. Just, again, he did not match the hype, unfortunately. And between loan fee and purchase option on his way out, I believe the total price tag came to $10 million even or something around there. That's not so bad. And it looks like an overpay by River Plate at this stage. Like, just hasn't quite made the impact. But Ezequiel Barco, like, look, Ezequiel Barco walked, so Thiago Almada could run. Like, this was, again, a $15 million signing. Like, one of the premier young talents coming out of Argentina came to MLS. So thank you for that, Ezequiel. Number 2, P.T. Martinez, $15.5 million to Atlanta United from River Plate. And that was, at the time, a league record. It broke the league record fee for Ezequiel Barco. He came in as a Miguel Almiron replacement. He was the South American Player of the Year, winning Copa Libertadores with River Plate before he came to MLS. More than anybody in recent memory, I cannot comprehend why he was not a star in this league. 11 goals and 14 assists in 54 appearances. Again, it doesn't sound awful, but like he was supposed to be the best player in the league or one of the best players in the league. Again, South American Player of the Year, winning Copa Libertadores, the best player on that River Plate team in that run. Like, he should have shredded MLS, like straight up. Like, it's crazy. Like, I wrote down in my notes here, solid in 2019, 5 goals, 9 assists. That's not solid, bro. Like, that's not solid for him. I'm already arguing with myself. Like, this dude, like, in prime, all of that, he should have been so much better. I don't understand why he wasn't. I don't know if it was system. I don't know if it, like, he's not very athletic, and MLS is an athletic league, but, like, there's, like, Alejandro Pozuelo isn't that athletic either, and he did fine, right? Like, so, I don't know. You know what else doesn't make sense? Atlanta somehow turned a small profit. He was sold to Al Nassr in a couple years later for 19 million or whatever I said in my last video. Sorry, just a lot of information going back and forth. And yes, obviously Saudi money is the answer of how there was a little bit of bid, but who are they bidding against? He wasn't awful in Saudi Arabia. In his last season, he had 8 goals and 2 assists in 1,000 minutes. Not so bad. Not worth the price tag. Not so bad. But he's also not quite the level of the Saudi stars these days. He ain't Ronaldo or Malcolm or Roberto Firmino, Karim Benzema. So he's back at River Plate with Ezequiel Barco. Just a little MLS reunion tour. And finally, number 1 most expensive incoming transfer in MLS history, Thiago Almada to Atlanta United, $16 million from Vélez Sarsfield in 2022. Thiago Almada is everything we hoped and thought Ezequiel Barco would be, and so much more. MVP finalist in 2022, and he was the first active MLS player to win a World Cup in 2022 as part of that Argentina squad. And now he'll captain Argentina U23s at the Olympics. Great recruitment by Atlanta and great deal making. For Almada, phenomenal performances. He's got 23 goals and 24 assists in 79 appearances. Last year, his MVP finalist year, 11 goals, 16 assists in 31 appearances. He's just phenomenal, man. Like, he hasn't been so great this year, but I don't think that takes away from how he's viewed in Europe or, I don't think nobody's doubting his talent. Like, he's a great player. And we'll see what happens next. Can they re-sign him to a new contract, or does a big bid come this summer? I don't know which way it's going to go, but that's what's next. Thiago Almada lived up to the price tag, continues to live up to the price tag. He's been incredible. Awesome player, super fun. The number 1 most expensive player in MLS history. I'm not sure when the next one is going to happen, whether it's going to be broken, like when Charlotte were trying to sign Luciano Rodriguez, the Uruguayan wonder kid. I don't know if it would have broke this fee, but it would have been really like that. That's something that would have happened. For this fee to be broken again, it's going to have to be some combination of probably like extremely highly rated young talent rather than say like an in-prime player from Europe. But who knows? We'll see. Maybe the next evolution of MLS will be an $18 million transfer fee for like Antoine Griezmann or something like that. Who knows? So, but for right now, Thiago Almada is the most expensive player in MLS history. Not going to do an outro here. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you watching this. I'm currently in Mexico right now. I've recorded this a few days later. Hopefully I'm not sunburned right now. It's okay. So future Tom, wear sunscreen in Mexico. All right, everybody. Cheers.